Welcome to Refinery Injury Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Refinery Injury Podcast with Brooks Harrison. Brooks is a Texas trial attorney dedicated to representing refinery and plant workers who suffer catastrophic injuries in explosions, fires, and chemical accidents across the South. I'm Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're talking about what refinery workers and their families face when a burn injury changes everything overnight. Brooks, it's good to have you back.
Thanks for having me again, Kevin.
Absolutely. Obviously, you've seen how quickly things can go wrong inside a refinery. We've talked about it a lot. When a worker suffers a burn injury on the job, what usually unfolds in those first moments before help even arrives?
Well, obviously, at any event that leads to somebody becoming burned is immediately a chaotic situation. Obviously, the priority is for the safety of everybody within that unit or surrounding that area, and then also to be able to administer first aid. Workers and bystanders typically assess the scene to ensure there's no ongoing danger, remove any dangers, and any hazards, shut off any of the sources that created the incident, and obviously removing contaminated clothing is very important, and treating the burn. There shouldn't be any ice placed on the burns. The burn should be flushed with water. 20 minutes of water flushing. That's the only thing that should be done while having the subject in a safer area.
Yeah, that sounds just awful. I mean, they could obviously these injuries can look very different depending on what was the cause of the burn. What are the most common situations or equipment that lead to the most severe burns?
That's not necessarily the specific type of equipment, but it's the process that's involved with that equipment. And that process will generally always involve heat, high pressures, and then flammable substances. So like distillation units, cracking units, those are all high heat, high pressure, and those are the usual subjects. And so explosions and fires, they pressure valves, compressors, drills, pumps, anything can really cause the beginnings of what ends up happening.
And then after, so once emergency care gets there, what are those next few days typically like medically, especially when doctors are still trying to figure out how deep the damage really goes?
I actually just finished a particular case involving this issue, and it ended up being a 2-year process after all. The immediate aftermath is they're going to be in a burn unit. They're going to immediately be going through the daily assessments. Oftentimes they're intubated for the debridements. And when we say debridement, that's whenever they come in and literally multiple times a week scrub off the old burn skin to allow for the new growth. That honestly is the most painful process I've ever witnessed. And it's not something I recommend anybody ever having to witness or go through, but unfortunately, a lot of folks in our world do.
Yeah, I've actually heard that before, the scrubbing of the skin in order to, I just can't even imagine the level of pain that is.
Well, another issue, a lot of times with the debridements, the burns are so severe. With the higher end burns, the burns are so severe that they actually have to intubate or medicate the patient. And so With that being said, I've actually had multiple cases now with the intubation over and over and over, basically having to put somebody to sleep for a while. I've seen them have to have, we've had 2 cases where they've had to have full teeth replacement. They've had to have implants put in due to that. So the intubation loosens your adult teeth. So that's another issue. So that's a $60,000 cost that's added on to all of this.
What long-term health issues do you see most often in the cases you handle?
Well, obviously the scarring, the disfigurement, nerve damage causes chronic pain oftentimes. They have the numbness and they really can't feel anymore after the burns. The burning itself causes reduced mobility. And we've had that with two of our clients who were patients. The loss of mobility after the skin grafts, after all the debridement, after all of that, it's you actually have a lot of physical therapy ahead of you to regain your mobility, and that's almost always the case. And the reoccurring theme over all of this, whenever you have burns, that results into that's open wounds essentially, and those open wounds are oftentimes lead to infection. So
Mm-hmm.
infections create setbacks in your recovery. So it's always trying to progress, increase your mobility, heal, and avoid the infection. And so that's the never-ending battle, generally for months and years in burn cases.
So, from a legal standpoint, what tends to matter most when you're trying to show exactly how a burn happened and who was responsible for the conditions that led to it?
It hinges on the investigations. It hinges on us getting in and getting a restraining order, being part of the investigation. The governmental reports and incidents, witness statements, equipment logs, OSHA findings. You have to literally unturn every stone, and you never go in assuming. Even if we have seen something a thousand times, it doesn't mean that this particular incident occurred in that manner. We can't just go along with that's the way it's always happened. We have to have specific evidence, and therefore we actually bring in specific experts for those particular issues. So it's never, nothing is ever a cookie cutter case.
Hmm. Yeah, I would imagine. I would imagine. And you mentioned that these, we require months or even years of treatment. Obviously, a lot of times this is going to affect a worker's ability to earn a living while they're recovering. What options do they have as a general rule?
From the outset, there is the potential of workers' compensation providing some sort of financial benefit. Uh, that's usually not very much, which is why that's what at our firm we try to be more holistic in our approach to our clients. We understand our clients are suffering not just physically but probably economically as a result as well. So we have partners within the industry. We bring them in, and we make sure that our clients are taken care of financially, whether it's through advancements of funds or whatever it may be. And that's our job is not just to be the litigators. We build a team around the family and help the family actually make it through these horrible events.
How much of a fight does that end up being for you? Does it just depend on the situation?
Yeah, I mean workers comp generally should be automatic. We've never really run into much of an issue with comp not wanting to cover. What comp tries to do is cover by less. Their
Sure.
coverage is always there. They just want to pay less, and we see that with insurance companies and with anybody else we deal with for the most part. But and then with our partnerships, we have to date with thousands of clients thus far. We don't have anybody that has been forced into bankruptcy because of in any event out at a refinery or any lawsuit or anything else.
Okay, that's great. Great. Yeah, because we've talked in previous episodes about how a lot of people will try to work through pretty bad injuries because they don't want to lose their job or they've got a family to provide for, and we totally anybody would understand that. Obviously, what have you seen households struggle with the most in the aftermath of a major burn?
Well, obviously, it's that withdrawal of the primary breadwinner for the most part is what we see. We see oftentimes we see mothers being thrust into uh, not only taking care of the kids in the household, they're thrust into the job of trying to bring some money in to supplement the workers' comp or whatever loans that we can get for them. Um, it's never an easy process. It's going to be a grind. It's I mean that's the reason you file a lawsuit, and that's the reason a lot of money usually changes hands. Um,
Hmm.
it's a horrible situation, and again, that's our job is to mitigate the most negative aspects. And whenever I say that, uh, that's with the experience of literally a few thousand cases and a few thousand families and dealing with those folks and understanding their needs. We're not all so different. I know we're all individuals, but we're not all so different. So we usually have a pretty good idea of what's going to be coming next, and that way we can lead and help avoid those pitfalls for our clients.
You've talked about how many people you've represented, and obviously a lot of times these people's lives are changed forever. What moments stand out to you when a worker realizes they're not facing that fight alone?
It's funny you say that. It usually comes about in the middle part of the litigation. Just like everybody, I've had to hire a lawyer myself, and that was back before I was a lawyer, and it's not a fun event having to go to a law office and having to speak to folks and expose everything about yourself to these folks that you've never met in your life. We do everything we can to alleviate those fears. As you see, you're probably going to walk into the office and you're not going to walk into a guy wearing a suit and throwing out $10 words. So you're going to have somebody that actually understands your circumstances, who grew up in the area where you probably work, and we've been through these battles. I mean, we're tested, we're experienced, and I think we actually have an understanding of the workers to actually provide a holistic approach to representing them and their family.
How hard is it for you, just seeing some of these horrific accidents and some of these horrible situations?
It is horrific, and I will say over time it has probably toughened me up a little bit, and some things that probably would have shocked me beyond belief 20 years ago, today probably just get a couple of looks out of me. But catastrophic event is a catastrophic event, and that never changes. And it's horrific, and actually attempting to feel the pain and of that family is part of the process.
All right, well, that's it for today's episode of the Refinery Injury Podcast with Brooks Harrison. If you or someone you love has suffered a burn injury in a refinery or a plant, visit refineryinjury.com to learn more about your options and how Brooks and his team can help. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review so more workers can get the guidance they deserve. Brooks, always great chatting with you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so very much, Kevin.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.